Welcome to Uncovered Biblical History and Traditions, the channel dedicated to lost stories of the biblical past. Discover stories of pre-Christian historical roots, biblical legends, lost church history, and forgotten historical characters of faith. It is very helpful if you hit the like, subscribe, and share. Help build my channel, and let's take a look together into these uncovered forgotten tales. Imagine this: a Christian scholar walks into a library in 1920s Britain, convinced Christianity brought revolutionary new ideas to the ancient world. 3 hours later, he walks out questioning everything he believed about religious history. What did he discover? That supposedly original Christian doctrines, the Trinity, resurrection, divine mercy, weren't Christian innovations at all. They were ancient Hebrew concepts, preserved for centuries by Celtic Druids who may themselves have been descendants of Israel's lost tribes. This isn't fringe conspiracy theory. This is the startling conclusion of serious scholars examining deep connections between Hebrew theology, Celtic wisdom, and Christianity's foundations. Today, we're diving into history's most fascinating cover-up, not intentional deception, but collective amnesia hiding Western spiritual traditions' true roots for nearly 2 millennia. The story begins in ancient Britain, long before Roman legions touched Celtic soil. While most imagine pre-Christian Celts as primitive tree worshippers painting themselves blue, reality was startlingly different. Celtic Druids operated sophisticated universities that became Britain's entire civil and ecclesiastical infrastructure. Parliament, courts, medical colleges, church hierarchy all emerged from these ancient learning centers. But here's where it gets interesting: these Druidic institutions weren't just preserving Celtic wisdom. They maintained something far more ancient, theological knowledge bearing unmistakable Hebrew hallmarks. Teaching methods, spiritual concepts, organizational structures all point to a startling possibility. Hebrew theological concepts had been preserved in Celtic culture for centuries, possibly carried by Israel's lost tribes. The first clue lies in how Druids taught. They organized wisdom into triads, systematic three-part formulations making complex spiritual concepts memorable. Sound familiar? This is identical to Hebrew proverbs and wisdom literature structure. The scholar examining these texts noted explicitly that, in the Orient, this form is usually known as proverbs, direct acknowledgement of the Hebrew connection. This wasn't coincidental similarity. The triadic method reflects the same pedagogical approach found throughout Hebrew scripture: numerical sayings, parallel structures, wisdom formulations designed to embed divine truth into human memory. When Celtic students learned about soul or God's character, they unknowingly absorbed teaching methods refined over centuries in Hebrew educational tradition. If Druids used Hebrew teaching methods, what else had they inherited? Here's where the story takes a dramatic turn. Christianity claims the Trinity as its most distinctive doctrine, God existing as three persons in one essence. But Druids taught sophisticated Trinitarian theology centuries before Christ's birth. They spoke of three primeval unities: one God, one truth, and one point of liberty where all opposites converge. From these three proceeds all of life, all that is good, and all power. This isn't just similar to Christian Trinitarian theology, it's more sophisticated than many later Christian formulations. The Hebrew connections run deeper. Druidic emphasis on divine unity, their insistence that more than one of the same substance cannot exist, directly parallels the Hebrew concept of echad, divine oneness proclaimed in the Shema. Druids had preserved and developed Hebrew understanding of divine complexity within absolute unity, centuries before Christian theologians wrestled with these concepts. This raises an uncomfortable question: if Druids already understood Trinitarian theology, where did they learn it? The most plausible answer points to Hebrew influence through Israelite communities settled in Celtic regions following Assyrian and Babylonian exiles. Druidic understanding of human spiritual nature reveals even more Hebrew influence. They taught a 7-level hierarchy tracing the path from physical existence to divine union. Every person possesses a soul, every soul contains intelligence, every intelligence generates thought, every thought embodies either good or evil, evil contains death, good contains life, and life contains divine presence. This framework perfectly mirrors Hebrew anthropology. The soul corresponds to nephesh, divine breath animating human life. The intelligence reflects ruach, divine spirit enabling understanding. The moral dualism echoes covenant structure found throughout Hebrew scripture, where every choice carries eternal consequences. Most remarkably, Druids taught that divine presence, DUW, dwells within good choices. This is essentially the Hebrew concept of Shekinah, God's dwelling presence among his people, expressed in Celtic terminology. The ethical framework taught by Druids further reinforces Hebrew connection. They prioritize duty over sentiment, teaching three fundamental obligations: worship God, be just to all people, and die for your country. This triad directly parallels Hebrew covenantal structure. Religious duty reflects the first commandment and Shema's call to love God completely. Social duty echoes Hebrew prophetic tradition's emphasis on justice for stranger, widow, and orphan. Civic duty reflects Hebrew understanding that covenant community is worth ultimate sacrifice. Even their approach to understanding character shows Hebrew influence. Druids taught that soul qualities are revealed through what a person fears, conceals, and displays. This behavioral focus mirrors Hebrew wisdom tradition's emphasis on examining the heart through observable actions. By their fruits you shall know them. Perhaps the most shocking discovery concerns resurrection doctrine. Most Christians assume bodily resurrection originated with Jesus and was Christianity's unique contribution to religious thought. This assumption crumbles under historical examination. Egyptians had taught resurrection for millennia, that's why they mummified bodies. But Druids went further, combining resurrection with reincarnation and developing sophisticated understanding of soul purification that mirrors Hebrew mystical traditions. This synthesis suggests Hebrew influence on both Egyptian and Celtic resurrection concepts. Hebrew communities in Egypt during biblical periods could have influenced Egyptian theology, while Hebrew diaspora communities in Celtic regions preserved and developed these concepts further. The evidence points to remarkable historical process. Hebrew theological concepts, developed through centuries of divine revelation and scholarly reflection, spread through diaspora communities following Assyrian and Babylonian exiles. Some communities settled in Celtic regions, establishing educational institutions later called Druidic universities. This explains why early Christian theology developed so quickly and sophisticatedly. The theological vocabulary, conceptual frameworks, and spiritual insights were already available, preserved in Celtic culture by communities maintaining Hebrew traditions for centuries. The influence extended beyond religious concepts. When Roman poets like Virgil encountered Celtic wisdom, they incorporated these Hebrew-influenced ideas into classical literature. This research challenges fundamental assumptions about religious history and cultural development. If Hebrew theological concepts were preserved in Celtic culture and influenced Christian development, then Christianity's relationship to Judaism becomes far more complex than traditional accounts suggest. Rather than replacing Judaism with something entirely new, Christianity may have drawn heavily from Hebrew traditions preserved and developed in non-Jewish communities. The Celtic role as preservers and transmitters of Hebrew wisdom gives them significance in religious history that's been almost entirely overlooked. Today, hundreds of millions in Eastern traditions maintain beliefs rooted in this ancient synthesis of Hebrew and Celtic wisdom. The doctrine of resurrection combined with soul purification continues offering hope and meaning to contemporary seekers, just as it did to ancient Celts and early Christians. This investigation raises profound questions about religious innovation and cultural transmission. How much of what we consider new in religious development is actually recovery and recombination of ancient wisdom? How many supposedly original insights are rediscovery of truths that earlier cultures had understood and preserved? Celtic preservation of Hebrew wisdom demonstrates that truth transcends cultural boundaries and that wisdom traditions can survive and flourish in unexpected contexts. It suggests our contemporary spiritual seeking might benefit from greater attention to ancient sources, rather than assuming modernity has nothing to learn from antiquity. Perhaps most importantly, this research demonstrates interconnectedness of human spiritual development. Hebrew, Celtic, Egyptian, Roman, and Christian traditions weren't isolated developments but parts of a larger conversation about ultimate reality ongoing for millennia. If you would like further context and the rest of the story, check out previous videos and future videos. If you would like more information where to research this subject, pause this image and look into these resources or find resources in description. If you have book sources or links of your own on this subject, please share in comments or email me. Thank you. I hope you enjoyed this forgotten biblical story. Leave a like, comment, share and subscribe. This is very helpful. Join me next time for another lost story of our biblical history. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, comment, share and subscribe for more great content. Hit the notification bell so you never miss an update. See you in the next video.